Planet Vero Studio is powered by the Nolan Group of eXp Realty. MyNextHomeFinder.com.
Treasure Coast Connector. Connecting residents and businesses of the Treasure Coast. And here's your host, Ellen Contreras.
Welcome to Treasure Coast Connector. I'm your host, Ellen Contreras. My company by the same name is one of the show's sponsors, and we help business owners create awareness of their products and services in the marketplace through websites, lead generation programs, social media marketing, video production, advertising, PR, articles in the news. All of the details are on the website, www.tcconnector.com, or call 772-925-4557. Treasure Coast Connector, the show, puts a spotlight on local business owners because everyone has an interesting story of why they do what they do, and we want to get to know them because when we learn about them and do business locally, it strengthens the local economy. First, it was the skills gap. Then came the Great Resignation, followed by the Great Reshuffle. Now, people, when they're looking for a job, they want a job that's aligned with their skills, with a good rate of pay and a nice benefits package. Employers, they're looking for talented people who want to stick with it for the long haul, who are punctual, and a team player. In the middle of these two groups are employment agencies, and they have recruiters that are dedicated to bridging that gap. So it's a win-win for everyone. Joining me in the studio today is Mike England, and he is the owner of Express Employment Professionals of the Treasure Coast region. He's here to talk about how he helps local business owners through the Tri-County area with staffing and recruiting. So welcome to the show, Mike.
Ellen, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, wonderful to have you here. I wanted you on the show for a while, and you're a busy guy.
we try to stay that way.
I know, very, very busy, and we made it work, right?
Absolutely.
So before we talk about your agency and what you do in the community for the job seekers, and the businesses, is what made you, we want to know a little bit about you and your background and what made you want to own a recruiting agency?
Great question. And 10 years ago, if you'd asked me that question, I wouldn't have had a good answer for you. But it really goes back to the early 80s when I entered the financial world. And I spent about 30 years in the financial world. And ultimately, a lot of my duties later on, the last 10 or 15 years, were focused on finding talent, developing relationships with that talent, ultimately recruiting that talent, and training them and putting them to work so they could be productive for our organization. Now, what I learned in that, if you fast forward to 2016, when we opened Express Employment Professionals of the Treasure Coast, is that there are a lot of similarities to people looking for jobs, whether it's a job paying $250,000 a year or $25,000 a year. And what I mean by that is everybody out there at some time in the past has been looking for a job, and no one would tell you that it's a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
It's debilitating. It's discouraging. It's not fun. And even if you're someone who doesn't look for help in anything that you do, when you're looking for a job, you're probably willing to take any amount of help that you can find.
Sure.
So, and people appreciate that. So if I were to boil that down after taking 30 years in the financial world and then what we do at Express Employment Professionals, it's all about networking, talking to people, understanding employers. And if I were to sum it up, I would say for the employee, we're just trying to find the job that's the best fit for them at a good company. And if you're an employer, we're looking to find good people to fill the positions that we know you're desperately trying to fill.
Well, very good. Yes. Okay. Excellent. I appreciate that. And I know that there were a lot of transferable skills that you had from one industry to the next. So now people thought that the Great Recession was a huge disruptor, and it definitely was. But then the coronavirus has tossed us around a little bit. So tell me about what the market is like, and I'd like for you to address both sides. So tell me what it's like out there now in the Treasure Coast area for the job seekers and the employers.
Well, I hope no one takes this the wrong way, but sometimes I think potential employees and employers can be their own worst enemy. And what I mean by that is you hear things like the Great Resignation, you hear about virtual work, Zoom interviews, work-life balance.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is really just noise, and it gives people or employers and employees reasons to maybe not pursue the job of their dreams. Just to give you a couple of statistics, one more local and one more national, and this is relatively new. In the country today, there are over 11 million job openings and only about 7.5 million people to fill those jobs. I don't think that's a surprise to most people.
Right.
But the reality is, I think both of those numbers are grossly understated. And they're understated because many of the jobs that are out there never make it to a job board. They're never advertised on a company website. Right. You just have to be connected with these businesses and individuals to know that these jobs exist. I think, one of the things in a real simple fashion that the employer could do to better position themselves and to find the employees they want is to be more responsive when people apply for a job.
Thank you.
Too often, if not all the time, we have incredibly talented people come to our organization and they go through the litany of how many places they've applied for. And what's interesting about that is in talking with businesses, even in the hiring departments, there's really not a mechanism to engage people if they don't check the box in certain areas on their resume. And I would submit to you that if you're wanting a resume to be the final qualification for filling a job, you're never going to fill that job.
Right, yeah.
You've got to be in touch with the people. From the employee standpoint or potential employee standpoint, there's such a great opportunity for you to find your dream job out there right now. But what you have to do is be real honest with yourself and honest with the potential employer in that if you have challenges, whether it's transportation, whether it's daycare, whatever it may be, the more open you are about having those challenges, you will find employers very accommodative, but they don't want surprises. And you don't want to start a job and 1 week later you're missing because of some transportation issue. Just be open and honest about it. The other thing is just more of a human thing in that if you can just be a positive person to be around, if you can do what is asked of you, not be a complainer, have a good attendance record, be punctual, you will be head and shoulders above most other employees out there. And the one, if I had to narrow it down to one piece of advice, Ellen, put your cell phone down. Your employer doesn't want to see you walking around with your cell phone, and chances are you really don't need to have it in your hand while you're doing your job. So bottom line to that question is there are jobs for almost everybody, and there are people out there to fill almost every job.
Well, very good. Excellent. Because, and I do like what you said about the employers, that, radio silence, like it's like that black hole of resume ocean that it goes into the applicant tracking system. And it's really stressful for the job seeker. And then I've even had it where somebody found a resume and it was amazing. And then it was too late, don't worry about that. And, but, and that is frustrating. So I like the fact that we have to kind of push the employers to, you have this job, let's help you get this filled. And then the other thing is compartmentalization. My parents were self-employed. You come to work, okay, whether you're the owner or the employee, whatever your problems are on both sides, leave it at home,
Absolutely.
And, don't have your kids call it work unless they're, I hate to say it, I say it all the time anyway, bleeding out the eye. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, just leave it all until the end of the day.
Right.
Very good. Skills gap. So back in 2011, they were talking about the skills gap, and you kind of mentioned that. So do you think that there still is a skills gap?
Good news, bad news
Okay.
is that was 11 years ago. And if you think about the growth that is happening on the Treasure Coast right now, there's still a skills gap because we have that many more jobs, that many more companies that are choosing to relocate here. And whatever skills gaps we had in 2011 have just been exacerbated by the tremendous growth we're seeing. That problem is probably not going to go away. And the reality is that some of those jobs, and I'll just say electricians, plumbers, some of the trades, HVAC, what have you, those are skills that an employer really needs to have the person adequately trained for. And there's no alternative to that. Where I think the employers could benefit themselves is they've got to be willing to maybe even create their own training, not rely on outside sources.
Yeah.
And what I mean by training is not sending a guy out with a senior person for a week and a half and call him trained, but legitimately put time, effort, and resources into training up people internally. And I see this, I'll leave some names out of it, but there's a couple of companies that I work with. Some have an excellent training program.
The apprentice programs, yeah.
Others have none. And I can tell you who has the more thriving business.
Yeah.
It's those that have invested resources into training their people.
Yeah, there were some companies in the manufacturing sector that literally had an offline facility where people were
Absolutely.
building and doing things, but it was not for the actual product. So that way, if they made a mistake, and it was amazing. And then those people got trained very quickly, relatively quickly, and then they were out on the production floor. Yeah, right here in Fort Pierce.
Another thing, and we see this a lot, and if you think about everything we just talked about of what's attracting people to the Treasure Coast and to Florida, is we see so many people coming our way that are relocating from another state or whatever.
Yeah.
And too often the employers make a knee-jerk reaction that, that person just relocated here to retire in Florida. Well, that's probably not the case. And I think many employers would find a lot more success if they would be more open. Now, the positive to this is what is really great about the Treasure Coast. Every organization out there, whether it's the colleges, whether it's our friends at CareerSource, whether it's private entities, whatever it may be, almost all of these have put some type of training or apprenticeship program in place.
Yeah.
And that is fantastic. The bad news is if you had 100% enrollment, a 100% graduation rate, an accelerated graduation rate, it would do nothing more than just to be a drop in the bucket of what's really needed.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes employers, they hear about an apprenticeship program or a training program at a trade school, and they think, this is going to solve my needs moving forward. It's just got to be one leg of the stool in helping them find the appropriate employees they're looking for.
Well, very good. And on that note, we're going to take a very quick break for our sponsors, but Mike England of Express Employment Professionals has a lot more to say. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
At Sunshine Furniture, our 35,000 square foot showroom is filled with the largest selection of in-stock coastal furniture on the Treasure Coast. Dining and bedroom sets, occasional tables, sofas, sleeper sofas, love seats, and chairs, including lots of slipcover styles from Universal Upholstery, Four Seasons, and Capri. At Sunshine Furniture, we have a gallery of Tommy Bahama and Lexington designed for a relaxed approach to the finer things in life. Right now, we have selected groups marked down for our spring clearance, and also all pictures, lamps, and accessories are half price. Sunshine Furniture, 1295 US 1 in Vero Beach, next to Planet Fitness. Visit our website at sunshinefurniturecasual.com and visit our outlet and closeout store directly across the street.
Sunshine Furniture, the best in every way. Ooh, have a sunshine day. Sunshine Furniture, the best in every way. Ooh, have a sunshine day. Sunshine.
There they're coming. The Blue Angels will roar over the skies of Vero Beach once again. Don't miss the Vero Beach Air Show, April 29th, 30th, and May 1st, featuring the return of the Blue Angels. See, hear, and feel the new Super Hornet jets and the new Fat Albert aircraft. New this year, a Friday night show. Don't worry, all 2020 tickets, vouchers, and passes will be honored. The Vero Beach Air Show, April 29th, 30th, and May 1st. Get tickets online at VeroAirShow.com. VeroAirShow.com. One of the great things about affordable water is you don't need to be a client for service. That's right, if you have equipment from almost anywhere else, it doesn't matter. Affordable Water will service or repair it. No contracts, no commitments, no problems. And no salespeople, just water technicians who will come out and service your existing water equipment. Affordable Water.
Call 589-7677 for your H2O. Call the Pure Water Pros. Affordable Water.
Welcome back to Treasure Coast Connector. I'm your host, Ellen Contreras, and I've been speaking with Mike England of Express Employment Professionals here on the Treasure Coast. And we were talking about, the skills gap and such, but you touched on something before the commercial break. But you know what I want to do, actually? I forgot during the first half. I love for the people that are listening on iHeartRadio on the podcast, for you to tell them how to connect with you directly.
Oh.
Because the people that watch, they get a graphic.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
Well, I think the information we have on the screen is my phone number, which is 772-212-7479. My direct extension is 106. And we've even put on there my personal email, which is mike.england@expresspros.com. And I am not putting that up there just because I want to put my name in lights. But the reality is, I like to have contact with almost everyone that comes in our office. And if you do reach out to me, I'll make every effort to make a personal contact with you. But chances are I'm going to delegate you to one of the 8 other staff members that we have and make sure that you get treated just like you'd expect to be treated.
Yeah, and that's very nice. And you have a wonderful staff. And I know 2 of them, Susan Garman, okay?
Oh, yeah.
She's a friend of mine. And I have to tell you, I'm going to videotape you, Susan, when she does her 30-second commercials at the networking, because she really, it's like a production. It's like she has this poem and everything. She's very talented, and she gets people leaning forward when she talks about Express Employment. And then Tage Tatman, he's a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely.
Out there. Very good. But, we were also talking before the break about different types of work and the skills gap and the coronavirus. We're hearing about remote work. And for some positions, it works beautifully. And in certain parts of the country, it's really picking up steam. Is remote work a thing happening on the Treasure Coast?
We could really go off the deep end on this, but I would summarize it to say that our experience has been, with very few exceptions, when companies have resorted to making their staffs remote, it turns out to be a gigantic headache. We have one client in particular that when they were forced to go virtual, they had to hire additional staff to do the monitoring for the virtual workforce. Mm-hmm. They had to create a new software package to be able to monitor the activities. And they would tell you to this day, if they could get them back into the office, they would do so in a heartbeat. The unfortunate part about that, without going into a rabbit hole, is unfortunately some employees have now gotten acclimated to that. Mm-hmm. And the employer runs the risk of alienating them if they force them to come back to the office.
Right. Yeah. So that's not a win-win, but, or maybe they could do a hybrid where some days you're home and some days you're in the office. And then at least it's a win-win that way because you're seeing your coworkers face to face.
Well, and the last thing I'd say on that is it's interesting. Some people who demanded virtual work after a few months of doing it, they say, I got to get back to a location. This is killing me.
Yeah. For some people, they really don't like it. Okay, so now let's talk about the services that you offer at Express for the employers, okay? And there's a second part to that question is, what are the benefits of an employer working with Express?
Well, let me just share with you two different things that I'll leave it up to the employer whether or not they feel like it's a benefit or not. Let's ask the question. If you're an employer and you found a tool or a process or something that you could do to improve productivity, save resources, save man hours, would you do it? Would you invest in it? Most business people are going to say, absolutely, I would do it. Well, that's how we view ourselves. We're another resource in the human resource department. The amount of FaceTime, interviewing, screening, background checks that we do, we just know that even some of the largest human resource departments don't have the capacity to do it. They're just not structured to be that way.
Yeah.
And so the two examples I want to give you is A, what everyone goes through when we find a candidate for a job with us, and then B, tell you about a tool that we use that really gives you a scope of how many people we talk to. So here's what would happen. Ellen, if you applied for a job with Express, here's what I can assure you would occur. You would get a phone call, you would get a text, you would get an email, and the plan is that we want to have at least a 10 to 15 minute phone conversation with you to really assess where we think we can put you. If we feel pretty good about it and you're comfortable with it, we then bring you in the office for a real face-to-face interview. After we've done all the things that we do there, then we're in a position to feel comfortable to present you to one of our clients or someone we may think could use your particular skills. Now, if you stop right there, most people who apply for a job at a company are not going to get a phone call. They're not going to get an email. They're not going to get a text. They may or may not get any communication whatsoever.
Yeah.
By design, we do it. And here's the example I want to give you in talking about a tool. And I'm not indirectly, we use things like LinkedIn and ZipRecruiter, but we actually use a tool that costs me about as much as a full-time employee each and every year.
Oh.
So first of all, most employers would never expend that kind of money for this tool. And here's what this tool has done for us this year through Sunday.
Okay.
It has generated 988 resumes that were not just out of the blue. These were direct responses to specific jobs that we had. So doesn't count the walk-ins that we get, the job fairs that we do. This would be you seeing one of our jobs on our website or one of the other places we post jobs, and you plugging your resume in and saying, I'm interested in this job. And of those 988 people, probably about 20% of them, once we talk to them, we probably can help them for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
But that still leaves over 700 that they're going to get that phone call, they're going to get that text, they're going to get the email, and if they're willing, we'll bring them in the office and make every effort to get them a job.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'll say what I said in the beginning. Most employers just aren't quite ready to do that.
Yeah. It takes a lot of time. And a lot of times the employers, the business owners themselves, they're too busy. They may have an office manager. They're also very busy. And if they have an HR person or even a few people on their staff in HR, I like to think of the agencies like yourself as the assistant to the owner, the office manager, or the HR. So that's why I love to point at the camera and tell the business owners in all seriousness that it is worth your weight in gold for the service that you offer. It saves a lot of. They don't have to kiss the frogs that you can. People are not frogs. You know what I'm saying. But they want to put the right person to the right job. So I wanted to say we have about a minute left. Thank you very much for coming in, because I think that people that are watching and listening, whether they're looking for a job or they're an employer, they're going to have a lot of confidence in working with you, especially the potential employees are going to feel like they're being heard,
Great.
And they're not going to be a square peg in a round hole, or a frog for that matter. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you again for having me.
Yep. And so this is another episode of Treasure Coast Connector. I'm your host, Ellen Contreras. I hope everyone has a safe, productive week. And until next week, I miss you already.